Welcome to my channel. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. There are a handful of reasons why Triple H is regarded to be one of the most influential driving elements behind WWE's hottest period. Jim Ross, on the other hand, claims that he has been a real-life conflict with a WWE star that passed away a few decades back. Before the legend, it was Conrad. On Grilling Jr., Thompson had a conversation with Jim Ross. In addition to addressing the open secret of the association with Triple H, Pat Patterson, in addition to the latter half of the 1990s and the early, Pat Patterson is said to have been around in the 2000s. In the year 2020, who had died away, was closer to. He was more known to Triple H than he was to The Rock. Also, according to the rumors, not a fan of the game, criticizing the outstanding one that is in front of him, peers. And given it some thought, fans who are petty realize that Patterson was Vince McMahon's son. Ruler's right-hand guy for a considerable amount of time, was well known for being a backstage performer for Monarchs. When he was a politician, he was able to make it to which are the most influential circles in the business. Things that Patterson was supposedly accused of doing. I am not a fan of Jim Ross being the reaction. Said that Pat Patterson was present at the time. The position of Vince McMahon, which said that he was, with the ex-WWE boss for a joint-to-the-hip relationship, a lot of years that were highly significant, like the negative circumstances, which Ross most likely meant the middle of the 1990s were a period of transition, and Patterson's way of booking, which is focused on humor, to be out of date. The assertions of Jim Ross are not. Nevertheless, due to the fact that the booking style was. The modification was also in agreement with Triple H, attaining a closer proximity to Vince McMahon. Dispute between Triple H and Patterson during the match caused the latter to walk out of the building because the game was too valuable to be played at that moment. WWE. It was well knowledge that Pat was in the event that Patterson were to leave WWE. The momentary it was in late 2004 that he left and came back in May of 2005 in a limited capacity. Ross said that neither Pat nor himself had the ability to. He was able to insult each other via the game. A different tone that Triple H has concerning Pat. Patterson has undergone remarkable transformations, as we are unable to proceed at this point in time without highlighting the fact that WWE's chief executive officer, the content officer, has undergone a significant change. When compared to Pat Patterson's speech over the years on account of the game's maturation, transformed into a member of the backstage crew, it would seem that the partnership was successful in a natural way, repairing itself while chatting to Ryan. Pat is the name of the Saturn of Fox Sports. Triple H. Patterson is considered to be one of the most crucial, the most significant individuals in the history of WWE. To most people, Vince is definitely at the top of the list. I don't understand how you could possibly have anybody be more than that, but Pat would be considered a god. He is ahead of me by a hair's breadth in that race. It is impossible for me to get through a single day without, whether I'm using the performance center or not. Either I'm creating or I'm talking to talent, television, or we are trying to write something, or I am engaged in any activity that is associated with the WWE in which there is not a single piece of Pat that is connected to it. He said so even at the press of the Elimination Chamber in the year 2023. The game was played during a convention in Montreal. Talking about Patterson in an emotional manner expresses the fact that he would have been pleased with, based on what he saw during an open interview, that seismic vibrations were transmitted throughout the wrestling. Former member of the WWE Hall of Fame, this is Jim Ross. I out that there was a time when actual life existed. Triple H and a late WWE show are experiencing friction. A legendary figure renowned for his unrivaled storytelling as well as profound understanding of the revelation regarding the wrestling industry. Ross's, regarding a feud that is taking on behind the scenes. It had been the focus of attention for a considerable amount of time. Insiders and fans alike are speculating about it. The same way, establishing the context for a complicated connection to the realm of professional experience. The sport of wrestling is centered on competition, both contrived and genuine. It is common knowledge that how the borders between fact and fiction are drawn. A lot of the time, personal concerns overlap, occasionally threatening to spill over into the ring. The WWE's Triple H, a pillar of the company for decades, he has appeared on a number of screens. Disagreements, but as Jim Ross disclosed, one of the real-life problems he was having with a colleague. The wrestler went much beyond the plot of the novel. It was none other than the LWW legend in question. Other than China, a pioneering person in the process of the women's wrestling community and a member of the Generation X DX stable, an iconic product. In addition to Triple H, China, whose true name is China, was Johnny Laura. There was a breakthrough in a business that is dominated by men, earning the respect from both fans and comrades. Similar, but regardless of her connection with Double H, both in his personal life and in a professional capacity, was not without. It finally resulted in complications that led to long-term conflict between the two participants in the WWE. Was in the thick of the conflict in the late 1990s, an era that was characterized by a more edgy attitude, substance, as well as personalities who are larger than life. Triple H and Shawn led the direction of Generation X. It was Michaels who became one of the most well-known historical wrestling factions and groups, the Chinas. The addition of DX was a revolutionary step because, according to the portrayal, she was on par with her masculine counterparts are often dominant figures. Wrestlers of the masculine gender in the ring behind the depictions of the connection between China and Triple H. Beyond the professional level, because of their friendship, the two started dating. Their relationship became quite popular very fast. The locker room, where Jim Ross was working at the time as the head of talent relations for WWE during the tournament, time brought to mind the nature of their connection, originally having a beneficial impact on both aspects. They were a power couple in the world of wrestling. All of the things that Ross said in the interview, China was gaining ground and Triple H was on the rise. The establishment of higher standards for women in the business sector. They have a synergy that, both into and out of the language, translated, yet, as their careers progressed, they continued to make progress. The pressure of also increased. The beginning of the end of sustaining a high-profile relationship in the cutthroat business of professional wrestling is the beginning of the end too. Their relationship reached a pivotal stage at that time. During the time when Triple H was teamed with Stephanie, she is the daughter of the chairman of WWE, McMahon. The on-screen appearance of Vince McMahon, narrative the perspective from which Triple H was seen, and Stephanie become a powerful relationship. Inside the WWE storyline, gained traction very soon, support from the audience, yet what began as a successful, the concept quickly turned into a reality, and chemistry between H and Stephanie, as shown on film, eventually developed into a real-life China's sense of romanticism. What happened was because devastating the one and only irreconcilable partnership encountered a growing sense of disconnection with the strengthening of Triple H's friendship with rift is created by Stephanie, which cannot be repaired. Jim Ross, who was waiting in the first row, went to the incident was characterized as a drama that was ongoing. As the best possible combination of personal and disruptions in the workplace, China suffered a loss, and consequently, Ross clarified that she was in the right, one in which she was required to keep an eye on the the guy she loved to get connected with another person. Other than that, not just on television, but also in real life, it was an event that no one could have ever predicted. Ready for the circumstances that Triple H and Stephanie's, as the relationship progressed, it grew increasingly serious. It's Chyna noticed herself becoming more and more. Despite of her prowess in the ring, she was alone. It was a chaotic situation in her personal life, and it started to have a negative impact on her professional life. It's Ross. This brings to mind how Chyna's once promising, a downward trend started to occur as there was a growing friction between her and Triple H. Greater in intensity, Chyna was an expert in her field. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, Ross said, but it was evident that the circumstance was having an impact on. It was evident in her performances, which you could see, and you were able to sense it. The anxiety that was there backstage was evident. When she and Triple H were in the same room together, the same room, a consequence of the circumstance that arose in the year 2001, when Chyna was at its peak, freed from duties at WWE. According to the stated explanation for her, no explanation was ever provided for Ross's departure, implied that the personal problems were the cause. Between her and Triple H, there was a game that, playing a crucial part in the resolution. The leaving was one of the most difficult aspects. Ross was required to make judgments for the organization, acknowledged that there were a great deal of contributing variables, despite the fact that it is difficult to ignore the influence that her connection with Triple had on her. H made use of the subsequent to Chyna's departure from WWE's life predicament, took a turn for the worse. She battled to survive through drug addiction and encountered a great deal of personal issues while also coping with when the ache of her fractured bones continued to linger.